Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Sableyes. I'm here today with Jordan. How are we doing, Jordan?
Not too bad, thank you.
That is brilliant, and we are here to take a look at a really cool list that came out of Day 2 of the Brazil International Championships, and that is Baby Charizard, the old Roaring Resolve Charizard, 150 HP, and Roaring Resolve ability, which is once during your turn you can put 2 damage counters onto Charizard, and then search your deck for 2 energy in order to use continuous Blaze Ball for 30, plus 50 for each fire energy that you discard. This is a really powerful Pokemon that hasn't seen a huge amount of play, but was quite successful on Day 2 of the International Championships, ending up in 73rd place, I think it was, Andre Pimenta and his list. I think it was featured on the first round of Day 2 as well. I think it was against ADP, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe so. I did watch the game. It was definitely versus a tag team deck. I'm pretty sure it was ADP. But yeah, this is a card that I think we've played around with this on the channel before as like more of a rogue idea, but it definitely feels like this Charizard is more competitive now than it's ever been before. I know watching the stream that I was really impressed by this deck, and I actually remember telling you that I was like, oh, I think it might have made like top 16, top 32 or something, and I was wrong and ended up not doing as well as I thought it did on the second day, but in the first day, I believe it went 5-0-4, so it got a few ties in there, but it did go undefeated in the first day of Swiss. So yeah, it's got a lot of potential, I think, and we're going to have to see how it works today.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we're running the Charizard. I'm just going to very quickly remove that one. I didn't realise that I had 4. There you go. Classic stuff. We've got a 4-1-4 line of that Roaring Resolve Charizard. That is going to be our main attacker in the list. We've obviously got a couple of other cards floating around that we're going to use in support. We've got 1 copy of Heatran GX. This is the only GX attacker / Pokemon period that we've got in the deck, and it's here to help support the damage output of our Charizard. The good thing about Heatran is that it's not a Stage 2, so you can just play it straight down and use Steaming Stomp or Hot Burn GX to take a big knockout when required.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have a basic attacker in these Stage 2 decks, and Heatran is a card that we kind of see as a pretty standard one of in pretty much every build of Fire. Even Blacephalon GX is playing one of Heatran these days, even though it used to be just like full Blacephalon GX and nothing else. And Heatran's ability itself just has so much synergy with Charizard. You can accelerate extra energy to your board with the Charizard, and then switch into your Heatran and get a massive GX attack out of nowhere. Now, it's true that if you've got enough energy on board, then Charizard's probably killing them anyway, but there's definitely going to be some situations where you can just charge a bunch of energy into play using that Charizard's ability, then go into the active with a Hot Burn GX and take a huge knockout out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Really strong. One of the big problems that decks like this often face, being one prize attackers, is that they struggle against Malamar. So Andre has obviously decided to run the 1 copy of Evil Admonition Hooper to help in that particular matchup. And it will come in real handy. 1 energy to knock out pretty much anything on Malamar's board is pretty strong. And it's actually pretty useful in a lot of other matchups as well, just to do a little bit of chip damage here or there when maybe you're desperate to set up a Charizard.
Yeah, I know that Mewtwo is another popular deck, which the Hooper is quite strong against. It's not quite as strong against Mewtwo as it is against Malamar, but you can definitely like set up for a knockout just for 1 energy with Hooper. Make it pretty awkward for them to take the knockout because it does have psychic resistance, so you can kind of force them to knock it out with a Greninja or something like that, or maybe a Brilliant Flare instead of going for a Turbo Strike, which is pretty nice. And as you were saying, the Malamar matchup, you would think that Charizard is naturally pretty good against Malamar because it does have 150 HP, which is out of range of Shadow Impact, but when you use that ability, the Charizard actually does put 20 damage on itself, which puts it in perfect range to be knocked out by a Shadow Impact. And it is true that against Malamar, you can just use Welder. That's going to be enough to take a knockout, so you don't have to use the ability every turn. But yeah, having this Hooper to kind of give you a bit of an edge is definitely pretty strong.
Yeah, it's going to help you mitigate that risk. We've got a couple of other Pokemon in our list as support. We've got Jirachi, Stellar Wish, 3 count in this one, not the full 4. Probably okay, especially considering we've got some different kind of engines that we're working with to get our Pokemon in play. And then this is the cool bit. We've got a Mew, which is pretty cool, you know. It's always good card.
Good card.
We've got a Ditto Prism, because we've got a couple of stage 1s. We've got a 1/1 line of Salazzle with Roast Reveal, and it's important to note as well that we've got the Psychic Salandit here, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Roast Reveal is going to be good to discard an energy and draw some more cards, give ourselves that extra draw that we might need to find Welders or rare candies, maybe Rosa, to get our attackers into play. And we also have one copy of Ninetales without the Vulpix. So Andre obviously valuing the option to go into that Psychic Salandit more than the Vulpix. And it's interesting because with Professor Oak's setup, which was the way that we're going to try and set up our board state, it's actually almost better to have that Salandit in your deck, because it means that when you're searching for up to 3 basic Pokemon and putting them onto your bench, you can grab Salandit, you can grab Ditto, you can grab Charmander, you can grab Jirachi, you can even grab Hooper. You've got so many options just by including that Salandit to get your consistency engine going.
Yeah, I know that when we were kind of reviewing Professor Oak's theory, we were saying it's definitely a good card, but we just hadn't found like the right deck for to take use of it yet. And this feels like the perfect kind of an engine where it's going to be good. You're obviously playing a whole bunch of different evolution pieces that you need to get into play really early, and that Psychic Salandit is it's going to make it really easy to set up a really good board. And I'm a huge fan of that 1/1 Salazzle line. I know that when I think it first came out, it was one of the cards I was most excited for. I was kind of trying to tech it into a whole bunch of fire-based lists, and it never took off, unfortunately. It seems like Ninetales ended up prevailing as the more powerful tech option in fire decks, but yeah, it's definitely great to see it being played in this deck, and it's going to be really important having that bit of extra card draw to chain your Charizards, when it's really important to make sure you've got access to those stage 2 pieces every couple turns.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of cards that we need when our main attacker gets knocked out, so Salazzle is going to help, as well as our supporter lineup. It's an interesting one for a fire-based deck. Now, obviously, we've got 4 Welder. Welder is the card that we'd realistically like to be playing as often as we can, but unlike things like Reshizard and Breakzard, we don't have to play Welder every turn. Obviously, we are looking to play Professor Oak's setup on one of the first turns of the game. We've got 3 copies of that card to try and get our board set up. We've got Welder to help us accelerate energy onto Charizards once they're already in play, but since Charizard's got that ability, we don't actually have to use it all the time. And one of the other supporters that we're going to be really keen on using is the new Rosa. And this is really, really good, because when one of your Charizard gets knocked out, not only do you only give up 1 prize, but you effectively get to set up a brand new one for free.
Yeah, this card is the single reason that I think this deck goes from being a meme to being a legitimate threat. Because with Rosa, you can search your deck for just a rare candy, a Charizard, and a Fire Energy. That's the exact 3 cards that you need to do basically whatever you want every turn. And I'm almost a bit surprised to see that it's only a 2-off count of Rosa, because it just feels so strong in this deck. But you are correct, it is a fire deck. You are going to be wanting to play Welder a majority of the time. You've got Jirachi, you've got Salandit, so you've got a lot of ways to draw and find cards anyway, so hopefully you're not going to need the Rosa every time. But yeah, it's just such a strong card to be able to search your deck for some of those important consistency cards, and as well you can just get a second Rosa if you already have the candy in your hand, for example, or you can get one of those tech cards, one of item cards that we'll talk about a bit later. And also we are playing that 1 copy of Cynthia and Caitlyn tag team in this deck, which is going to potentially give you access to a 3rd Rosa if you find yourself needing it.
Yeah, exactly. You can use Cynthia and Caitlyn to grab yourself the Rosa for next turn, draw a couple of extra cards, and you'll find yourself in a pretty strong position. We also have 1 copy of Brock's Grit. Since our main attacker is a very Pokemon-intensive attacker, we realistically need to have a Charmander and a Charizard to get it going. We're probably going to find ourselves in the mid to late game in a position where we might want to use Brock's Grit. Since we don't have to Welder every turn, we can play this one down and get our Pokemon back into our deck. And we also have a copy of Tate and Liza in the list. Provides us some shuffle draw for when things go bad, and also gives us an option to switch out of the active, because you'll notice that even though Charizard can obviously attach energy to itself, it's got a little bit of a hefty retreat cost. You've got 2 there. Heatran obviously has 3, and Hooper also has 2, so you might every now and then find yourself with a bit of a heavy boy in the active. Tate and Liza can get you out of that situation if you need to.
Yeah, there's certainly a few cool tech supporters in this deck, and the Tate and Liza does make a lot of sense to me. You are playing a Jirachi engine, so just having that extra switch effect to use Jirachi when you're in dire needs. If you're not confident on the shuffle draw 5, if you've got a big hand, for example, holding a lot of combo pieces, you're just looking for like one card, you can always just Tantalizer, switch into Jirachi if you need to. But yeah, it's mainly just there for those bulky, awkward starters. You don't never want to start Heat Train if you can avoid it, because
yeah, exactly.
it's pretty awkward to do. And yeah, the Brock's Grit as well is going to make sure that even if you are having a bit of an awkward start with your setup, you're going to be able to maybe sack a few prizes and still have the attackers that you need in the late game to close out the game.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to the rest of our items, and it's kind of a weird, kind of kooky lineup of items, but I guess there's some space needed to be made, so there's a couple of interesting choices. The one that's obviously consistent is 4 copies of Rare Candy. We need it to get into our Charizard, so we've got to play a thick line of that. Nothing more to say. We've got a 2-1 switch engine, so 2 switch, 1 escape board. We obviously have the Tantalizer as well as another option, but this is a little bit low. It matches up with the lower count of Jirachi, obviously opting to reduce that package in order to try and fit more of the cards that are required in.
And yeah, that's a part of the reason why they're playing the Tantalizer as well, trying to make up for the fact that they are playing a slightly smaller count of switch. They also don't want to kind of run out of draw supporters, so they're kind of compromising and saying I'll play the Tantalizer to act as both copies, and also it's a way to recover a switch with your Cynthia and Caitlyn if you run out of switch effects. But yeah, I imagine that some of these sacrifices that had to be made to make sure this deck runs properly by cutting the Jirachi down, cutting the switch, cutting the escape board. I'd say all 3 of those counts are like one less than I'd like to see, and if we could eventually move forward into a version of this deck where we're playing high counts of those cards, I feel like if this deck was just a tiny bit more consistent, I could have seen it doing very well and going real deep in day 2. So that might be something to keep an eye on, is see what cards we can potentially cut to increase some of those counts.
Yeah, there's obviously opportunities for tinkering, and here's where some of the odd ones, accounts come in. We've got 3 copies of Pokemon Communication, which is really low. We've got 19 Pokemon in the deck, so there's never going to be a situation where we're going to be lacking that Pokemon to Pokemon Communication in. But obviously, since we're playing the Rosa, we've also got that extra Pokemon search there, so it's not like the end of the world if we don't have the 4th Pokecom, but I could definitely see this deck running 4, just because you've got so many options when it comes to the amount of Pokemon in the deck.
Yeah, exactly. And you always just want to give your Stellar Wish the highest chance possible of helping you out. And Pokemon Communication is typically a card that you're going to be pretty happy to see off of a Stellar Wish, so having greater chances to hit that is pretty nice. But as you said, Rosa just such a good card for this deck that you can kind of get away with some of these inconsistencies. You can be like, I'm going to play 1 less switch, I'm going to play 1 less Pokecom, because I can make up for that inconsistencies later on in the game once I start being knocked out. I can use Rosa to search out those specific cards I need, such as the switch, such as the Pokemon that you're missing, and hey, you can even find some of these more powerful item cards that we're about to talk about. Yeah,
well, we'll start off with Great Catcher. There's 1 Great Catcher in this list. Obviously, we have Ninetales, so that's going to be our main form of Gust, but Great Catcher can supplement that, thin out some cards that we don't need. Maybe we're playing against something that Hooper's just useless in. Maybe we've got Jirachis left over. Maybe we've got like Salazzle in our hand, but Salandit's prized. We can bin it, bring out a GX, knock it out with Charizard's attack, and find ourselves in a really strong position. But it's only a 1 count, because obviously we do have the Ninetales to 9 Temptations things out as well.
Yeah, in a deck that's really tight on space like this, this 1-1 split of Ninetales and Great Catcher is like the most space efficient and useful way to Gust possible. Like, it's really pretty genius play for being able to fit that 1 Ninetales without the Vulpix and the 1 Great Catcher in a deck that's already really tight, and still have what I would call, thanks to Rosa, still a pretty consistent form of Gust if you need it. Like, obviously you're not going to have access to Ditto every single game. Sometimes you might have to use it for your Salandit, or maybe it's prized, etc. But you've still got that Rosa for the Great Catcher if it does get prized, and if it doesn't, you've got Ninetales in play for the whole game, which is going to do the job.
Yeah, exactly. And then we've obviously got our suite of energy-related cards. We have 2 copies of Fiery Flint to get ourselves some energy in hand. We can use them to power our welders, get those Charizards with 4 or 5 energy on them, doing massive knockouts would be really, really strong. Now we have to discard that energy, so Fire Crystal is going to be able to get that energy back into our hand so that we can continue using Welder or Gusting with Ninetales. But it's also important that we have some energy in deck, because Roaring Resolve only grabs it from there. So we also have 1 copy of Energy Recycler in the late game we can shuffle 5 basic energy back into our deck, use Charizard to bring those energy back into play, and suddenly we're doing huge damage again.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the Vikavolt days where you'd use strong charge to accelerate 2 energy from your deck into play every turn. So that deck used to really love the energy recycler, and I imagine this deck is no different. You do go through your energy pretty quickly, I would say, between your Charizard ability and your welders. Hopefully you're closing games out before you run out most of the time, but you are going to be a little stressed for energy sometimes if you're in a tight game where you're kind of being forced to discard a whole bunch of energy every turn. And as we're about to discuss, we are only playing 12 fire energy, which means it is a little bit tight to close out games sometimes. But Charizard just does so much damage for the amount of energy that it uses that you got to think that you should be fine as long as you don't waste these resources.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be tough. We've got Heat Factory can discard energy to draw cards. We've got Salazzle can discard energy to draw cards, and obviously Ninetales discarding 2 energy in order to gust. So we're going to need to make decisions about where our energy is most useful. But hey, it's obviously going to be on the Charizard as often as we can. Doing 130 base damage is really strong, and we can boost that up to 230, even 280 really easily, which can get us into range of knocking out some ADPs, which will be exciting. Now, we're going to take this one onto the ladder, Jordan, and we'll see whether we can get ourselves a decent game.
Let's hope so. I feel like as long as we're able to stabilize the first turn or two, maybe if we stumble a bit, we can come back into the game with Rosa. But yeah, honestly, if this deck does what it's meant to do, it seems like it's going to be pretty strong against most of the decks that were doing well. Pretty good against the ADP and the Mewtwo decks, as long as you get set up pretty quickly. You just do so much damage that you can come back from behind really quickly, I feel.
Yeah, so we should give ourselves a really good shout in most matchups. It'll just be interesting to see what we pair up against here. Obviously, lots of people not playing PTCGO at the moment. Why would you? You could be playing Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is obviously where people would rather be at the moment, but that's okay. That would have been a really good hand if we had had 1 basic instead of the Salazzle there. That would have been great.
Yeah, maybe they'll let us play the Pokemon Communication for a basic real quick.
Maybe. Oh, geez, look out. This is okay.
That's not a bad hand. It's a very interesting hand. Imagine if we Stellar Wish into Oak here.
I'm going to leave one of those Charmanders, yeah. If we Stellar Wish into Oak, we are living the dream. We've got ourselves covered. And we're immediately punished with this Absol.
Well, yeah, we were just discussing how this list is playing a fairly tight line of switch effects, and I have a feeling that this deck wasn't really built with a heavy Absol field in mind. But to be fair, we are only playing 1 copy of Escape Board, so as long as we don't rely on that Escape Board to retreat, the Absol probably isn't going to be punishing us too much.
No, and looks like we might be going up against PikaRom here. I got all the signs of a PikaRom deck, so this will be real interesting.
3 months ago. And it's also a deck that I would say we're pretty ready for. We've got the Mew in our list, so we're hopefully not going to be destroyed by a random tag bolt to knock out both of our Charizards or anything like that, which is going to be their main source of coming back in a prize trade, because yeah, that is the confirmation that we're versing PikaRom. And 240 damage isn't that hard to do. It's not easy, because 230 is a lot easier, I believe. That's how the maths works.
Yep.
240 is doable.
That's alright, we can get to 240. And worst case scenario, we can just do 230 to 2 of them, and then you can snipe 10 damage on the board and it'll be fine. So
exactly.
I'm not stressed. And look, we've got a switch, so it's all going to be A-okay.
Well, if we get the Oak here, then we could even get a second Jirachi and Stellar if we want to. But
ooh.
We've got a Welder. It's not terrible.
I feel like that's probably the way to go here.
Yeah, the Escape Board would have been tempting if we had something else to go into, but the fact that Absol is in play means that Escape Board is not a very powerful card right now, and we've got the switch in hand anyway. Yeah, we got an attachment. Honestly, our hand for next turn, while it's a bit slow, it looks fine. We've got the Rare Candy, the Charizard, and the switch in hand to start attacking next turn.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, do we spread the energy out here and just give ourselves 2 threats, or do we just pile them all on? I think we're going to spread them out.
Yeah, how many energy does a Charizard need to knock out a PikaRom? It's 4, right?
It's 4, yeah. So we should be okay.
We've got 1 on each, means next turn we could go Rare Candy into Charizard, attach the energy in hand, use the ability. Maybe top tech a Great Catcher and kill that PikaRom if it doesn't come active on its own, but I have a feeling that it's going to be coming active.
Which would be exciting if they really go in hard here. We could potentially really punish them if they end up doing something silly like attaching all of their energy to the active. We could really give ourselves a nice free win, which would be nice.
Well, I'm going to say for their sake that I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they're going to accelerate to the bench, which will make it a bit of a tougher game because Full Blitz does do exactly enough to knock out a Charizard. So it will be like a matchup where we do have to start chaining our attackers pretty quickly, but we've got that Cynthia or Caitlyn in our hand for next turn, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll be able to keep this Jirachi. So we'll have access to at least a couple cards next turn. We can Cynthia Caitlyn for the Welder back to hand, and all of a sudden we'll just need like one more rare candy, and we're pretty much good to take 6 prizes, honestly, if we just find that one candy.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking for that one rare candy. PikaRom going super hard here to get all the things they need, but they've already got the energy. That's the most important thing. I guess, can they get out of the active? That's the next question. You would presume that they can.
I forgot if they've attached or not. If they haven't attached, then they can just attach the active.
They attached here.
Okay, well, they got the switch. I was going to say Energy Switch would have done the trick as well, thanks to that Zero Aura. Would give the Absol rare retreat. But yeah, they've killed the Jirachi, which sucks, because our hand isn't the best, but it's good enough that we're just going to knock out this PikaRom. How busted is that?
Well, I mean, are we actually going to knock out a PikaRom, or are we going to do 230 to a PikaRom, Jordan?
Wait, is it 230 for 4?
I'm fairly sure it's 230. We'll find out.
Oh, no. I forgot what the maths was.
It's okay, because we were talking before about the fact that all that we need to do is do 230 and we can kill it with Mew. So I'm going to Roaring Resolve here. I'm going to grab a couple of energy out of the deck, and whilst we're here, I'm just going to check that... Oh no, this is bad. This is bad.
Well, maybe we should have gone all in and put the 2 energy on the 1 Charizard. But...
It's okay. We've got Hooper. We can use that a bit later.
What's the extra dex? It's 50 for each fire, is it?
Yes. So it's 30 plus 50 for each fire we discard.
You're right. We are going to be 10 damage off, but we did top deck a Tate and Liza, and I wonder that probably might be better than just playing the Cynthia Caitlyn.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think we just attach to the Charmander on the bench and hit for 150. Because that way we've got ourselves some options, but we do need to find some stuff off of this Tate and Liza here. Hopefully we can get into something. That's something. We can play down this Heat Factory and discard
energy. At the very
energy.
least, we kind of need a basic, right? Because I would not put it past our opponent to pull off a Tag Bolt next turn and just win the game off our 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit disappointing. We're not going to be able to grab what we want, but we can... Oh, hang on a minute.
Oh wait, we got a heat. We got a switch in our hand.
That's a spicy play. It doesn't leave us with much.
Well, it gives us 3 cards to draw off the prizes.
That's
true. And one of those prizes could be a Mew, which is pretty good.
That is true. All right, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Our opponent can still Tag Bolt for 3 prize cards next turn if they're able to find access to Thunder Mountain. But even if they do that, we could still be fine because after they've Tag Bolted, they can only take 1 prize a turn for the rest of the game.
All right, well, we'll see how we go. So we're just starting the bidding here. We've got ourselves our 3 prizes, and they, like you said, can get their 3 prizes next turn. We get the Mew, so we're set. That's really big.
The other 2 cards weren't that strong, unfortunately. It would have been nice to have the Charmeleon. So that we'd be able to play the Charizard from our hand on the following turn.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay.
I do wish that we'd just have a Jirachi on our bench. You know, if we had the luxury of getting the Jirachi and the Heatran last turn, we'd be able to bench the Jirachi, holding that Escape Board and the Switch in our hand, and then being able to take the knockout of Heatran. That would have felt like a much stronger turn to me. But hey, we're still forcing our opponent to find Thunder Mountain if they want to take this Tag Bolt, which I feel like they probably need to do.
And all we need to do is we need to just make sure that we get an attack off here, right? So like if we get an attack off, we should be okay. It just comes down to, I think we're going to need to find rare candy this turn.
Yeah, so theoretically the way the prize trade would map out is they'll take 3 prizes most likely on this turn, knock out our Charizard, and then we just need to get 2 Charizards back to back, half hit this PikaRom, and then win the game because we get 2 tag teams, but they're going to make it as hard as possible for that to happen. Reset Stampede is not good for us with no Jirachi.
No, that's pretty strong. I think this might be the death blow. Unless something incredible comes off of the top deck here, I think we might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I just wish we didn't have that Mew prize, because if our Charizard survives here, I feel like it's super easy for us to win. We just need an energy this turn, or even not even an energy. We just need to get Rare Candy Charizard to evolve our bench Charmander, and we'd just inevitably 2-hit KO the PikaRom. We'd maybe have to find a Great Catcher, but now we have to get really lucky. I don't even know if there's any combination of 3 cards we can draw off of this Cynthia Caitlyn that'll save us.
I don't think there really is, and I think we have to like bin this welder as well, because I want to keep everything else.
Well, you can get a welder back.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's true. It's not the end of the world. We are in a lot of strife.
Oh yeah, it's the only option we have. Is it possible if we sack a Charmander to get a 1-hit KO of a Charizard next turn? I think it might be.
It is.
If we go,
yeah. So we can crystal and attach, and then we can welder next turn. So we're still in with a shot here.
We're just we're hoping that our opponent doesn't randomly gust and kill our bench Charmander with an energy. Hopefully, and also we need to welder into Rare Candy and Charizard. And if they retreat and find a new attacker, then we'd also need to find our 1 copy of Great Catcher.
But hey, we've got ourselves. We've got a chance. We've got a. Oh, it's a judge. We're done. We are done.
Oh no, they're gonna
kill us with Zapdos as well. Oh, they're gonna be so efficient, Jordan.
They're playing the game well, Mitch. What are we gonna do?
They're so efficient. I don't know what I'm gonna be able to do about this.
Like how inconsistent Stage 2 deck is just randomly paired against the most consistent deck in the game, even though it's not as relevant anymore.
Okay, so we need to top deck Welder, double energy, and then off of that we need to get Great Catcher, Rare Candy, and Concede.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah.
That seems fair. So it turns out that Mew is important in that matchup. Noted.
Yeah. Yes, we've learnt something here today. We have learned something.
It's still up. Seems like pretty well overall. Like if obviously we had our Jirachi knocked out pretty early, and our Charizard was knocked out in the next turn. No, our Heatran, sorry, was knocked out in the next turn by a Tadpole. That's pretty like best case scenario for our opponent. So hopefully we play a deck that isn't quite as efficient as PikaRom this time.
They didn't miss a step and we did, so that was the negative. But hey, we get to go first this time. Give ourselves a chance to set up our board. And look at this, we've got ourselves another massive Pokemon start. So hopefully we can get something off of this Stellar Wish.
Well, yeah, what I was just about to say is I really hope that we're able to show off the Professor Oak setting in this game and potentially start getting the pieces to pull off our Salazzle. Because I think Salazzle would have put us in a much safer position last game when we got getting stamped to be able to draw out of those stamps. But that is not a good Stellar Wish. Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
They've opened to Dene, so it's not the worst thing that could happen.
We're just so reliant now on making sure that we actually get something off of this next Stellar Wish. So we're going to be lucky in that they need to attach to retreat, so the chances of them knocking out Jirachi are low. But it could still happen, and that would be crippling, because then we'd be top decking already.
There are a lot of good cards we could find here. Obviously, if we find a Charizard, that's not bad, because we can start accelerating our energy into play. If we find a Welder, that's also pretty strong, because that can allow us to dig pretty far through our deck. Our opponent's benching the Heatran, so I guess they could, if they want to waste their GX attack, take the knockout on this Jirachi, which, for our sake, I hope they don't do it, but...
Yeah, it would be a super bad play, but it would completely destroy us, so...
Hey, we would have top decked another Jirachi anyway, so let's see what we got.
Stellar Wish. Okay, so now we've got a choice to make. We got Welder and Oak, so do we want to set up our board, or do we want to really power some attackers here?
I feel like the Welder's stronger here, just because the Oak, while it would have been strong last turn, I feel like we're not going to really have good access to any card draw if we take the Oak. Like if we maybe had a Salazzle or Pokemon in our hands, then I would have felt pretty good about like getting the Ditto and stuff. But hey, we've already got most of the basics we need to play, right? It's mostly just a few cards that we're missing.
And at this point, I'm thinking what we do. I think we just sit on this.
Yep, I agree.
I'm gonna play.
Probably best to take a Jirachi.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this down, but we don't need to play any of this other stuff. All we're gonna do is if we play the Rare Candy and the Charizard, we're just gonna give our opponent a target. So just make it look like we've got nothing. And hopefully it just knocks out the Jirachi, we can promote this Charmander and get to work.
Due to the fact that they don't have like a Vulpix or a Ditto in play, makes me think that our Charmanders and Charizard probably would be safe on the bench, but you never know when you randomly come against someone who's playing custom catches.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be careful.
Theoretically, we could have gone a bit all in there and put our Charizard into play, start fitting some energy out of our deck and making our Heatran a big target, or sorry, a big threat, I should say, with 5 energy on the play. But I don't think we need that extra energy in play in this matchup because we've already got everything we need to take care of this Heatran turn 2.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be able to put this Charmander with the 1 energy into the active here. That will be able to get 2 energy with Charizard's ability. We'll be able to get some with Giant Hearth. That'll take a knockout on the Heatran, and then we've got a Charmander with 2 energy on the bench, ready for another Charizard down the track. So I feel like we're in a much better position here than we were in our last game.
Yeah, everything's going pretty well, but once again, our hand is it's feeling pretty lackluster, so it makes me almost tempted to want to promote the Jirachi and hopefully Stellar Wish into something good to make our hand stronger. But once again, this deck is really playing a fairly low count of switch effects, so if we promoted the Jirachi and this, then I feel really bad. But hey, we got a pretty good top deck.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Alright, so let's Rare Candy. We're going to Rare Candy into this Charizard here. Now we're going to start going with Roaring Resolve. We'll get those into play. We'll get 2 there. Now we can also get 2 off of the Giant Hearth. The question is, what are we going to discard? We're probably going to get rid of... I don't know.
Maybe the Brock.
Yeah, because, I was thinking that as well.
Because what I'd love to see off of the Waller is I'd love to see us draw like a Pokemon Communication to put maybe the Ditto into play, if not maybe like a Salandit, because our opponent has 2 Dedanes on the bench, and we're about to knock out a Heatran. So if we could eventually get our Ninetales into play, as long as we keep getting Charizards, eventually we would just win the game due to gusting Dedanes over and over again. But for the time being, that's going to happen. But yeah, we don't really need anything this turn. We've got the attack on board to just knock out the Heatran. We've got a Heatran of our own in hand and a Welder to keep drawing cards. So
I'm kind of just going to sit on this, I reckon, and then we'll just continuous Blaze Ball and take the knockout. I was trying to think about whether or not it would be better to attach the energy, but let me just leave it in hand. Even though we do have that search option, we should be okay. Take a couple of prizes. Again, the board state's not great, but it's better than our opponents, so that's good.
It's enough. Yeah. And I feel like this is the kind of board state where if we ever found Rosa at this point in the game, we would kind of just be able to set ourselves up for the rest of the game to start chaining Charizards. So for the most part, maybe need to find 1 or 2 cards here or there, but that's where I really wish, once again, I wish we could fit like a slightly higher count of Rosa, but there we go, we just win the game because Charizard's pretty busted.
Charizard's pretty strong. But hey, there you go. We won't push our luck any further than that. This deck seems like it's full of potential. It's one of those decks that, I mean, like, it doesn't seem like it should be that good at first glance, but when you really get into the nuts and bolts of it, there's lots of things going on, but there's lots of good stuff here too. I'm glad that it was actually played by Andre in Sao Paulo, that someone actually did really well with it, because otherwise it might have been one of those decks that just kind of fell by the wayside. But I feel like there's lots of work to do, and this could potentially be a really solid option.
Yeah, this is just the perfect way to abuse Rosa, and Rosa, I think, one of the strongest support cards that we got in the new set. It's probably the best non-tag team supporter that we got, and I really wish that we were able to see it do better. But yeah, the Charizard definitely is a really strong abuser of this Rosa, and if we can fit a couple extra of those consistency cards, an extra Jirachi, extra Rosa, maybe an extra Pokecom or extra switch effects, like, that is a lot of cards I'm asking for, obviously, but I really feel like this deck has a lot of potential if we can make a few small tweaks to it.
Yeah, if we could fit those cards in, then that would be great. But hey, Charizard is always popular, whether people like it or not, and it's going to continue to get good cards, and this one here is pretty good. Thanks, Jordan, for bringing the list to my attention, first of all. I didn't even realise that this was a thing, because I missed the game the first round of day 2, so I didn't see it. And when you brought it up, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I saw it, and I was like, this is amazing. So thanks for bringing it to my attention, and thanks for coming along to record this one with me.
Yeah, no problem. I was really happy to see this on stream. It was definitely the deck that I enjoyed watching the most, I'd say, over the weekend. And if you figure out what the best cards to cut are, then tell us in the comments so we can make this actually work a bit better.
Yeah, exactly. Make it just that smidgen more consistent. Thanks, everyone, for watching. If you like the content, consider subscribing. Click the Sableye in the middle of the screen. On the left-hand side are some videos that YouTube thinks you'll like, and on the right we have our Cosmic Eclipse deck profile and matchup playlist. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at the Sableyes_YT. And apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.